find the right words. And there's no way this is real life. There's no telling you're the right girl. So I can only say that it feels right. It feels right. It feels right. Yeah, I can only say that it feels right. It feels right. It feels right. Yeah, I can only say that it feels right. This is just a buzz. Put me in perspective, I'm the deepest in the cut. Everybody tuning in, but this is just for us now. We know I ain't ballin' yet. Hoes wanna holler, oh no, I don't call them back. Girl, let me see you hold it down, we gon' have a blast. Cause I just wanna know what you gonna do with all of that. Ain't gotta say a word, I know what's up. You can have it all, watch me rip it off. I'll admit it, you got me feeling hella loved. Even when it's going down, know that we gon' live it up. Young shot caller, always been a baller. Know that you the one, I can feel it in my heart. Yeah, I won't stop charging me, go and come harder. I can see you and I, way beyond the stars, girl. I can never ever find the right words. And there's no way this is real life. There's no telling you're the right girl. So I can only say that it feels right. It feels right. It feels right. It feels right.
There's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice. I know my limits, you can break me down, but I'll stay till the finish line. And I've been counting minutes for quite some time now, just to see you again. And I've been counting days to get away, to see you again, see you again. Been fighting ways to get away, to see you again, see you again.
Give me 1 sec. I forgot I had the cap on my camera. All right, there we go. What is good, y'all? Just finish typing this one thing. All right, I think we should be good to go. Put my keyboard away. Mic here. And got the sparkling water. That tastes good. All right, let's go ahead. Update for tonight. Well, good to see y'all again. Back out on Thursday. Man, I was feeling tired today, but I had a test that I had to take, but I ended up doing super well on that test this morning. Had some stuff I had to get done for work. Came back home, I was like, oh, I'm tired. So I took a quick nap. Kind of woke up an hour ago or so from that nap. I already had things set up for the stream. I just had to take a couple of notes on some talking points I wanted to hit, and we're here right now. So not too much update wise. I mean, nothing crazy's happened. Yesterday I took the elders. So for those of you not familiar, in my church, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have missionaries, and I was once a missionary. That's actually in the thumbnail of my Tokyo, Japan picture. That's me as a missionary. If you look closely, you can actually see my name tag that I had pinned on my sweatshirt. But I was there for 2 years, and typically what missionaries are, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with them already, most people are, but if you're not, guys serve 2 years, 24 months. The girls, women, they serve 18 months, and you can go anywhere in the world. And we have a set of elders here, which are the guys, and then a set of sisters, which are the girls. Took the elders out. They actually had another elder with them because he's actually going to pick up a new missionary. I think he picked him up. They're picking him up sometime this week. I actually had three elders. I was intending to. I thought I was just going to have two of them. It's the end of their transfers, so they have transfers every 6 weeks. They get told kind of if they're staying in their current area or they're going to a different area. So they just had transfers. Both those elders are staying, but they picked up another elder because he has to pick up brand new missionaries training. So I took him out, some sushi, went to Kura here in Austin. They have lots of chains all over. They have several in Dallas, I'm sure other states as well. But really, really good, pretty authentic for being a U.S. sushi. But it's very much similar to, well, it's Kura Sushi in Japan, and also Sushiro is another chain there. But it's revolving sushi, super good, pretty good quality. Honestly, the pricing wasn't that bad as well. Last time I went there, it was like 250 per plate, and they had other plates that were a little bit more expensive, but I think they kind of equalized it out, even surprisingly with inflation. So all plates were 330. So that's a pretty dang good meal or good deal. So 330, we ended up eating like 20 plates, all of us, and had some dessert as well. For the four of us, only came out to like $80. So that's pretty good. I was actually gonna take him to another place. It was a lot nicer. It's called Fukumoto, and down more in Austin. I guess this place, Kudo was also in Austin, but like North Austin. So this was more like towards the city. A lot nicer. It was like 50 to $100 per person. I took the elders out last time. It was like 100 something bucks for just the three of us. So definitely a lot better. We eat a lot more food for sure. It was a good time. Yeah. So that was basically yesterday. And let's go ahead and hop into the topic at night. Now, I said I would talk about choosing what city you should live in. Now, I think this is really important. I went through this myself after graduating college. I mean, so you think of the timeline of your life. You grow up. Most people, some people move around depending on their parents' work and stuff. But I was fortunate enough. I kind of stayed in one place for my whole childhood. So I kind of born and raised in Dallas, Texas, very familiar, great place to grow up, great parents, couldn't have asked for better. But then I went to college and I had experience up in Utah. I was there for a year before I went on my own mission. So I was in Utah for a year, or a little bit less than a year, like 8 or 9 months, and then I went on my mission to Tokyo, Japan. That was awesome. I was there for a little over 2 years. Had a great experience. So I got to experience living in Tokyo. So I'm just talking like Tokyo as a general sense, and I might even have. That's a idea. I'll talk about like where specifically I was in Japan. I plan on going back to Japan this next April as well. So let me add that. So like mission. I know I've talked about my Japan experience extensively before, but not really about my mission experience. So that's another topic, potential topic for a live. But I was over there, so I was in the what's called the Tokyo South mission. So I wasn't in downtown Tokyo where you have like Shibuya and Shinjuku and stuff like and places like that, Harajuku. But we actually went to a lot of the stations because those are the main stations you kind of have to go through or stop at to get to kind of where you need to go. So we were Tokyo South, so we were kind of like south of Tokyo and west. So all the way from Kichijoji was kind of like the furthest east, which is where the mission home is. I was lucky to be there for 6 months. So basically, pretty much core Tokyo is what you would call it. Like I said, not downtown Tokyo, but literally like a couple stops away. So I was over there for a long time. I first started in Yokosuka, which is an American military base area. So that's kind of like the southern part. So Tokyo is right there, and then you go down a little bit south. Several people are very familiar with Yokohama, so I lived basically in Yokohama for a little bit. Ended up going to Kichijoji, so a little bit more towards Tokyo, and then I moved a couple other times. Went back to Yokohama at one point and ended up finishing in Atsugi, which was somewhat near Kamakura and Enoshima, which is actually where I took that picture. But it's like kind of like general like greater Tokyo area. So that was pretty sick. And even half of our mission had Mount Fuji. I never got to go to Mount Fuji myself just because it was out of our specific area. It was like way west, but we could see it and it was pretty sick. So I was there, and then I came back for school in Utah, and then those of you probably know, I did summer sales, like summers in between my college semesters to make some money, gain a little bit of experience as well. Great experience. I recommend to everyone. I actually have a talking point. I'm not going to talk about in tonight's live, but I might have a future live. It's like if I were talking to any like 18-year-old guy. Obviously everyone's path's different. What everyone wants to do is very different, but if you kind of want to get to like a similar path, I think a really good path and kind of getting into business itself is you first start off with some sort of sales job, and throughout college I got to have that experience, and it's great during college just because you're a college kid. Like I did a 100% sales commission job, and I made good money during the summer. Like my first summer I made 15-20K, and then every summer after that I made $10,000 more. So I ended up making like 40 grand my last summer. And I did all that while going to school, pursuing a finance degree. So first focused on sales, got several years of sales experience, and probably arguably the hardest kind of sales experience you could ever get. And then I learned how to generate money, generate revenue, and then now I do more of a finance role and accounting emphasis and background as well. So going to, all right, I understand how to gain revenue and generate revenue. Now I know how to manage that money and manage that cash, invest it, and eventually I want to get some more experience, obviously, in management. So you kind of cover a lot of the facets of a business itself: the revenue generation, the revenue preservation, and then Next step is getting that experience, eventually getting to management and learning how to make those important company decisions to grow a business. So I think that's really cool. That's what I'd recommend every young guy start off. Start with sales if you can during college, and then pursue something in finance, because like Dana White said, I shared it on my story. Like who runs the world? Finance people and lawyers. And you can put accountants with finance people as well, just because they play a very important part as well. But the best route is finance, but emphasis also in accounting. That way you can understand accounting, you can do accounting. You're not necessarily a certified CPA, because that's a lot of extra work that you have to do. But you know the ins and outs and you understand the basics of accounting. That way, like you said, you know how to generate revenue, you know how to preserve, you know how to invest that revenue, you know how to allocate that revenue. Then the last step is maybe starting something on your own or within the company you're working for. Get into a management level where you're able to get leadership experience, management experience, and you can make important decisions and work with a team. That's the next step. So that's what I'd recommend anyone that kind of wants to pursue the business background and potentially even start their own business. Now, I'm not going to go into all of that just because people will rebut, oh, you need to go to college and stuff. And I genuinely, for the most part, agree with you. If you're just like, just want to start some sort of business that doesn't really require a degree, but sure, why not? But that is not tonight's topic. Sorry, I digressed. So I was talking about living in Utah, going to school, but as my time doing the sales job in the summers, I had the opportunity of moving around the country. So each summer we went to a different place, which was really cool, and we went to some pretty big market cities. So first summer came down here to Austin. I passed through Austin. I'm native Texan and stuff, but I've never like lived here in Austin. So that was really cool to live here in Austin. And I mean, I'm back here in Austin, so that was a really good experience and a good exposure to the area for me. I got to meet some people that eventually led me to get an internship and a job. So it was a great decision, like looking back. But I lived in Austin, and these summers consist of like 3 to 4 months of doing these door-to-door sales. So first summer was here in Austin. The next summer was in Memphis, Tennessee, which honestly isn't the greatest city, pretty ghetto. But nearby, there's Nashville, Tennessee as well, which is a pretty up and coming city. And then you have my last summer. Sorry, I had mixed that up. My last summer, my third summer was in Memphis, Tennessee. I apologize. My second summer was in the Bay Area, California, which obviously Bay Area is suffering a little bit, specifically San Francisco, but still great area, like so nice. The tech hub of the world currently, so lots of opportunity there. So during these 3 summers, I was able to kind of hit two really big tech hubs, and then kind of a midwestern city. And there's still a lot of people there. I mean, like any place that has an NBA team is a pretty big city, to be honest, relatively speaking. So I got experience there. Lived in Tokyo, grew up in Dallas. Now currently live in Austin. Like I'm relatively well traveled, and I've kind of visited different cities as well. I've been everywhere on the West Coast pretty much, except for the Pacific Northwest, and I've been somewhat East Coast, like DC, a little bit south of DC, but I've never been to like New England area. That's kind of next on my list. But I'm a decently well traveled dude. That's kind of my experience, like not just visiting. I talked about this in one of my earlier lives, the benefits of living abroad. There's a difference between living somewhere and like visiting somewhere. Living somewhere totally different, way different experience. You experience life as a local there versus visiting somewhere, because anyone could visit anywhere for a week or so, and it's a totally different experience than you living there. So that's kind of my experience of where I lived. Lived in several different cities, probably more than the average person that's 26 years old. And based off of that, based on my experience and what I was looking for, I'm going to kind of go into what I used and what other people can use as well to kind of choose a city to go into, because it's a really important decision. Don't take it lightly. And the worst decision you could probably make is not going anywhere. I think that's number one, just because you get trapped in your hometown, and unless you're from one of these big cities, which most people probably aren't, and even then, you're definitely limiting your economic value that you could bring for yourself and your network that you can make. So, I mean, I grew up in Dallas. I could have decided to come back to Dallas, and I actually looked at jobs in Dallas, but I knew I kind of want to expand my network, know people in several different places, and I ended up choosing here. So, kind of where the steps I take, it's a really interesting. In school, kind of like when I was going through my finance degree, the business school at BYU is phenomenal. It's one of the best business schools in the nation, and primarily BYU. I didn't intend to study business at BYU. I wanted to study geology and STEM. So it just kind of worked out that I ended up eventually wanting to do business, and it still has one of the top programs in the country. So I was very fortunate in that sense. But they always preached vocation, location, corporation. Now this is specifically for people looking for more of a corporate job, like myself, to start my early career. But this is all dependent on different things. So I'm kind of that in that sense. It's kind of geared towards all right, and most of my content is kind of geared towards the younger guys out there, 18 to their 20s, probably going through college, maybe not. So this might be a little bit different for those of you who are a little bit older or maybe not even going to college. So vocation, location, corporation, when kind of deciding not only a career path, but specifically where you want to go, which city you want to live in. So vocation, obviously, it's your profession. What do you want to be? What specific job you want to do? Even within finance, like there's a ton of different stuff that you could do. Do you want to work corporate, or do you want to go into investment banking, or do you want to go into private wealth management, or do you want to go into more consulting, or you want to more? There's several different sides of it that you can do. Or you want to go to venture capital, private equity. Typically, people go to investment banking, then pivot or go into PEVC, but you can go into them straight nowadays. It's pretty cool. So first, what are you wanting to do for work, or what are you currently doing for work? Now, if you're wanting to make a pivot per se, this would actually be a good opportunity because you move to a new city, you're starting off a new profession, you're making a pivot in your career. You can start fresh. It's really nice. But the most important thing for any city, unless you're totally retired and you're like, if you're totally retired, I'm not actually curious on why you're watching my stuff, but most people are working and you want to build yourself up from a personal brand perspective and also from a business and financial perspective as well. So the number one question is, what are you wanting to do for work? What are you currently doing for work? What's your vocation? What's your dream vocation, or what do you want to get into type of thing? That will very much narrow down what cities you should be looking at. Because, like I said, if you're looking to, for example, go into tech, you're not probably going to move to Oklahoma City. You're probably not going to move to, I don't even know. Probably not going to move to honestly, even like Chicago or New York. You're probably looking at a couple options. You're looking at San Francisco, looking at Silicon Valley. You're looking at Austin. Potentially, you're looking at Salt Lake in Utah, Silicon Slopes, or maybe North Carolina. I know there's starting to be a tech hub out there, but your options are very, very much more limited. Whereas if you're going to finance, then you're like, all right, New York, San Francisco, like Houston, or New York, San Francisco, Chicago. That's what you're looking at. If you're looking at private wealth, then you're like, all right, maybe looking at California, somewhere in California, LA, San Francisco. Obviously, still New York. New York can be a great opportunity for any type of vocation. Excuse me, or maybe you're looking more at like an Orlando or Florida area where you can find people that have large sums of money or very wealthy. So it just depends on what you want to do. If you want to go into construction or you're going to manufacturing, maybe you're, all right, I'm looking to more like Midwest and Indiana, Michigan, Texas. So it 100% depends on what you currently do for work and what you're wanting to do for work. Just because if you're wanting to get into crypto, then you're going to go move to Florida. Now, I'm really big into crypto, but I'm more in the tech scene currently in finance tech, fintech. finance technology or technology finance. So Austin's like a really good area for me because big into tech, but it's also a bit into finance as well. If I wanted to strictly just go full crypto, I'd probably move to the Florida or something, go to Miami. That's where all the crypto bros are. So you want to create or go to a place that you can network with similar people. You potentially could get jobs there. And if you're looking for a niche job or more of a niche job or specific type of job, then you go to the place that has the most amount of those kinds of jobs because it just increases your chances of you getting one there. Like, yeah, if you were going to crypto, you're not going to move to like, oh, I'm going to move to Chicago or Indiana or wherever, Midwest, Nashville. You're probably not going to do that unless you're doing your own side thing. The cool thing is if you're an entrepreneur, you are what I eventually plan to be and hope to be, like my guy Rich Cooper says, is create an elf business and then you're locationless, you can work from anywhere, then it doesn't matter where the heck you live. If that's your situation or your goal, well, first off, your goal, I'd still recommend you moving to a big city just because you can network with people better. Even if you do strictly everything online, you can network with more people just because more people are in those big cities. But if you kind of more of already establish yourself, you're making good money, you're already pretty big and well off, then you can follow these next steps that I'm going to go over. So next is weather. I think that's a really big factor in choosing where you want to live. Just because depending on what kind of weather you like is definitely going to affect kind of your lifestyle and how you want to live your life and how it's going to affect your day-to-day life. For example, myself, that's why I one of the things I wanted to move out of Utah. I really enjoy the snow in the mountains, don't get me wrong, but I only enjoy it when I have my ski gear on and I'm on the mountains skiing. I do not like it when I'm in my car or scraping ice off my car at like 6 a.m. and it's like 20 degrees or lower. I'm not happy. I'm not looking forward to that. So anywhere with a relatively cold winter, I'm probably not going to stay there year round, or I'm not going to be there at all, from a permanent living perspective. So that's why I moved to Texas. Very mild winters. It's pretty nice year round. Obviously, the summers suck a lot, but I'd very much rather be hot because I can always go to the water or stay inside than be cold. Always bundling up and never go outside. Or, yeah, can't even leave the house because it's too much snow and ice on the ground. So even then, from that perspective, I can do hot weather. So even Phoenix, I also lived in the Phoenix area for a little bit, probably for like a couple months, just because during COVID, before we went to California, San Francisco area, we were in Arizona. So I was there for a month or so. And it was freaking hot. Not gonna lie, the hottest temperature wise in any place I've ever been is in the 112s, 114s regularly. But it was dry heat and you get used to it. You make sure you drink water, you stay in shade because there's no humidity there. And it's pretty simple. Someone told me this and I always preach it and tell people that are like, oh, I hate Arizona or I hate how hot it is or whatever. I'm like, honestly, it's like you just don't be outside. And even for Texas, it's the same thing. It's just like when it's super hot outside, you're just not outside. You go from your air conditioning house to your air conditioned car to your air conditioned work or wherever you're going. And then when you're done with that, you go back to your air conditioned car and you go back to your air conditioned home. Like you just don't be outside during the day. Simple as that. Whereas like winter, on the other hand, it's harder to do that just because it affects more of life. Just because there's snow and there's ice, which inhibit you from driving and can inhibit you from driving. So that's kind of why I think heat is a little bit better than cold. So weather plays a big part of it. So that's kind of why I looked into. Now, one other point that I think is super underrated and people need to take more into account is what it's like to travel to and from that location. So think of myself living in Texas. It's pretty centralized when you talk about like a domestic view of the country, the US, is right, it's kind of in the middle. So a flight to the West Coast is going to take just as long as a flight to the East Coast. It'll be like 4, maybe 5 hours, depending on where I'm going. So that's not too bad. And even when I'm going to like like Utah or something, it's like 3 hours, I think. Or I'm going to take a flight to Vegas. I think it's literally like 3 hours, I'm pretty sure. Something like that. So it's not too bad. Whereas obviously there's pros and cons. You take all these like weather and what you want to do for work into consideration. Just because like that's why I put this a little bit lower on the list. Just because it's not super high. It's not like the highest priority, but it is underrated and something lots of people do miss out on because they'll just move to like wherever. Like I'm gonna move to Dubai, which Dubai is pretty sick and it's awesome until you have to travel somewhere else. Like, don't get me wrong, I've never been to Dubai, so I don't really have a say in it. It would be sick to live there. I'd live there in a heartbeat if I had the opportunity. But I can see there's some difficulties when you're like, hey, I have this gig in Miami, or I have this gig in, or I have to do some business or meet up with someone in LA or something. It's like, shoot, I gotta take like a 20-hour flight somewhere. Like that's not fun, and especially if you have to do that on a regular basis, and then time zones too. That you can throw this in what it's like to travel to and from. If you're in a place where it's difficult time zones, and if you're working people like halfway around the world from you, like you're going to be working either super early or super late, or there you're going to have to whoever you're working with might have to work super early, super late. So there's a little bit of complications, inconveniences from that perspective. And same with East Coast, West Coast. Like if you're living in California and you have to travel to the East Coast, that sucks. It's like I mean I don't know if I've ever flown from like East Coast to West Coast, but it's like I want to say it's like 8 hours. I don't know. Let me look this up real quick. Flight. I've never done it. So LA to New York. How long is a flight from LA? All right, 5 hours and 36 minutes. Is actually not as bad as I thought, but still, that's like almost 6 hours out of your day, and then you take on going to the airport early, boarding, off boarding, and stuff like that. Like it's a little bit more on the inconvenient side. So, and that's the same thing. Even if like that'd be cool for me to live in Japan, and that's my goal of mine, but I'll have to understand that's like all right. A lot of people in maybe business in the U.S. It's like either maybe take a hit on that, or I'm gonna have to inconvenience my life a little bit more in order to do business and talk with those people and visit those people, just because you're so far away. Versus here in Texas, it's like you need to go Dallas, 3 hour car ride, or if you even fly, it's less. So that's a really underrated point that you have to take into account, just because it's cool to live somewhere, but if you're gonna have to travel to and from, and most people are on a somewhat semi-regular basis, then it's something to take into account. So that's why I like Texas is really nice. It's like centrally located. That's why Chicago's pretty popular too. It's centrally located. Even say like Tennessee or something, it's somewhat centrally located. Even Utah too, in perspective, because it's like close to Vegas, it's close to California, Denver, same thing. So it's worth looking into. All right, next point is this one's a little bit lower. I actually might put the next one above this one. I'd save this one for last. So next is like language. So if you're talking about different countries, your language ability and the ability for them to speak your native language, and maybe you not having to learn a second language, or the ability for you to learn that second language. For example, me in Japan, it wouldn't be too difficult. I would have to still learn a little bit more Japanese from if you want to work in business or whatever there, or if I want to be more like a local, which is the ultimate goal if you're moving anywhere. But it wouldn't be too bad for me. It wouldn't be very hard. Versus someone who doesn't know like any like German or whatever, and they end up actually Germany. I don't think it's too bad because they speak English there. A lot of the EU countries, but say you're moving to like Thailand or something, it's like all right, unless you're a passport pro or whatever. Like I guess some people speak English there. Or let's choose another example. I'm trying to think like South Korea, but you don't know like Korean at all. It's like Korean's pretty hard language to learn. Or you're moving to China, it's gonna be hard from a language perspective. So that's something to think about as well. The place you're going to, like their ability to speak your native language. For example, anywhere in the U.S. you're fine. Like Canada, you're fine. Most places in Europe, you're fine. It's more of the Asian countries. They might not understand you fully. You definitely won't understand them fully. You might have to learn a second language. And what's your ability and comfortability with learning that second language? All right, last on the list. I put obviously this is I think I put like an asterisk on this just because it is contingent on someone's specific situation. But dating, I think this is an important one just because it depends on just like your dating status and your I guess your marital status as well. Just because if you're say you're married and you have a family, or even if you don't have a family and you're just married, like you don't have to worry about dating. So you probably like it won't matter as much the dating scene, what the dating scene's like, and wherever you're moving. So you could be like, all right, I have me and my wife, we're going to Germany or something, we're going to Spain, and maybe we're going to Madrid or something like that, Frankfurt, Berlin. Uh, it's not as big of a deal, or even going to Japan. It's like, all right, don't have to deal with dating because I have a wife or like a serious girlfriend. But if you're single, on the other hand, that's like definitely something you want to take into account. Now, I don't think I would have a problem if I moved to Japan dating wise, just because I understand the language. I've dated Japanese girls before, so it's not too big of a problem. But for me, like moving to somewhere in Europe, not very familiar with European culture, and yeah, actually they speak English, but usually not their native language. It might be a little bit of miscommunication, so it will be a little bit more difficult. And even within the U.S., me moving from Utah to here was definitely different, just because the culture is definitely different, and also what I'm looking for is eventually want to date and marry a girl that's like a member of my faith. It's really important to me. So the pool is definitely shrunk, and it changes the dynamics of dating. So, and dating in Utah is going to be totally different from dating in New York. Dating in New York is going to be totally different from dating in LA. It's going to be totally different from dating in Topeka, Kansas. I don't even know if they date there. Date each other's cousins or something. I kid. I kid. I'm joking. But that's an important thing too, because like as a guy, in your 20s, you go into your 30s, maybe your 40s, it's like, all right, you're eventually kind of wanting to, depending what your lifestyle's like and what your goals are, but eventually, guys as they get older, they're wanting to find that. I don't want to say the name partner because Rich hates that word, and I kind of don't like that word either. But you gotta find a wifey. You gotta you want to have some kids and stuff. That's just natural. So that I'd say that's kind of like bottom of the list, just because even for me, like it's definitely an important factor, but it's not the most important thing. I would 100% move somewhere for a career opportunity that is going to dramatically diminish my dating chances. But it's also something to take into account, because if someone was like, "All right, I want you to move to middle of nowhere Africa, but I'm paying you," like this is probably not very realistic, but hypothetical situation, go move in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to pay you like bank to move there and work there to be great for your career, but there's like literally zero dating. Then I'm probably like, I don't know, like I can take a little bit less, but like be in this cool city and meet some nice girls. This is just me, honestly. It's not the most important thing. It's actually one of the least important things, but it's still important in a sense. It is important, period, for me. So wrapping up, that's kind of about it for kind of how I chose. So that's kind of how I went through the process. I'll kind of go through that process, what I went through with y'all. So I knew I wanted to go into finance. I originally wanted to do investment banking. It's kind of the typical, you want to go into the investment side of it thing. So I was looking at New York, San Francisco, like Houston, not really Chicago as much because I didn't really want to live in Chicago, because it's funny, my family, so I grew up in Dallas. My dad actually had the option of going to Chicago or going to Dallas. Then I'm going to Dallas. A lot better for a family, better growing up I think I love, like, I couldn't even, that'd be weird if I grew up in Chicago, how different my life would be. I think it would still be awesome and great. I'd still be a pretty good guy, but definitely different. I think I'd definitely prefer Texas, and my family definitely preferred Texas as well. But yeah, I knew I wanted to go into finance. So at first I was thinking banking. So I was thinking like one of the big cities for that. Ended up kind of changing just because I don't want to sell my life away. I wanted to do stuff like this on the side, build my personal brand, eventually potentially start my own business, focus on kind of some side stuff while also working, making pretty good money. So I decided to end up going more corporate route, and I think also to probably benefit myself long term for potentially being an entrepreneur, just because I wanted to get a base foundation of how a company works internally, the different departments, different I can get different niche expertises and also how to build out models and allocate funds effectively. So I think I can get a really good experience just working for like one of the biggest companies in the world and potentially other companies in the future, kind of as a base foundation for my career, and then eventually jump into the entrepreneur space. So I kind of moved to corporate finance, so that kind of broadened my options a little bit more. But I still was looking like East Coast, West Coast, and then like Midwest. Now, obviously, Texas was definitely a place I was thinking just because I'm from here. There's lots of perks to it. There's no income tax, which is super nice. If you go to New York or California, you're gonna get taxed out the wazoo for everything. So that was definitely an incentive, but I wasn't necessarily like I have to come back to Texas or necessarily like really wanted to come back to Texas. It was like if it was a good fit, then 100% I'd come back to Texas. Lower cost of living, lower housing prices, even though the Austin area is a little bit more expensive than other parts of Texas, but a lot less expensive than the big cities. So I kind of looked at that, and also weather-wise, I definitely liked it here. New York, brutal winters, and the lifestyle there. I don't know the New York for me. I think I've never been there, so maybe if I go there, my attitude might change. But I think it's a great place. It seems like a great place to visit based off of what I hear from other people and what I've observed myself, kind of like knowing people that have lived there. It's great to like visit and stuff, and it's really cool and it's fun. It's a city that never sleeps. But like living there long term, like it's tough. It's the city of grind, you know. And San Francisco, I really liked the area. It was a little bit too expensive, and I couldn't really justify moving there yet. Plus job opportunities as well. Um, the pay I don't think was dramatically that much more than living down here in Texas. So I was like, okay, weighed my options, and I knew I wanted to be in somewhat in tech, so that kind of focused me on like, all right, I didn't want to live in Utah, so Utah was kind of out of it. I was looking at stuff in North Carolina, looking at stuff at Austin, of course, and then looking at stuff in the Bay Area, and Dell was a really good fit. They came on the BYU campus. They recruit heavily out of BYU, so I didn't take. It still took a lot of effort, but I didn't have to carve my own path to a certain company, say like in San Francisco or North Carolina. And I already had ties here, and it was nice. I've lived here before, so I was familiar with it. So I thought it was a really good. And Austin, honestly, out of the three hubs I talked about for tech, is the most up and coming and growing one. You have Tesla that moved down here, Elon's down here, Joe Rogan's down here. I guess it's not technically tech, but you have Oracle down here. You have Indeed. You have all these big companies. You have big hubs of Apple and Amazon here. This is like the place everyone's moving to, and this is, I think it's going to be one of the big economic centers in the next 15, 20 years. Now, granted, I don't know if I'm going to stay that long. Who knows? But it's a great place to be, and also if I potentially buy a house down here, that's my next step. I bought my car. Now the next milestone for me is buying a house, and if I have an opportunity, then I think it would be sick to have a house down here. So that's kind of what my thought process was, and obviously weather. Like I said, I'm from Texas, so I'm used to it, and I like it. Travel to and from, I already explained it. Centralized, it's not bad going East Coast or West Coast. Also, it's awesome here specifically. I don't think you kind of get anywhere close to it other than if you live in New England, like Philly, Boston, New York, being so close to each other. Like you have three or like four of the biggest cities in the country like within 4 hours of each other. So I have Dallas 3 hours, 3 hours 30 minutes to the north. I have Houston 3 hours 30 minutes to the east. I have San Antonio an hour half, 2 hours to the south, and then I have Austin here. So a lot of people are moving down to Austin too, and that's a sign. A lot of people are leaving California and New York, and they're coming here. There's a reason why they're coming here. And then obviously dating, I kind of knew what the dating scene was like here just because I lived here multiple times. So I was somewhat comfortable with it, and I'd say things are going pretty well. You know what I mean? All right. So I'm going to leave it at that tonight. Recap to kind of talk what I went through, choosing a city to live in. I went over kind of where I've lived in the past, lots of different locations for work and for church reasons, and relatively well traveled. All right. And big thing my education taught me, vocation, location, corporation, applying it to different people, it's obviously a little bit different. You might not include corporation in there, but first of all, you want to consider in choosing what city to live in, what are you doing for work or what do you want to do for work? Maybe you want to do a pivot. The more opportunities you have for the job that you want or the job you currently have, probably the better. All right, next, weather. If you hate the winters, you're not going to go somewhere that has snow and a lot of it. And if you hate the summers, vice versa. So you want to pick somewhere where you can comfortably live and you're happy with the weather. And also, I'm a big proponent of multiple houses in multiple places, but not to that point yet. Check back with me in like 10 to 20 years. I think I'll be there. Next is something that's super underrated that not a lot of people talk about or think about is what it's like to travel to and from, just on a semi-regular basis, just because you're probably going to go visit people, whether for business or for leisure or whatever, for vacation possibly. So if you're living in Dubai, it's going to be hard to travel anywhere or travel back to the US per se, just because it's so far away. So take that into account. All right, language. If you're moving outside the country, do a lot of people there speak your native language? If not, what is their native language? How easy / hard is it to learn? That's something taken into consideration. And lastly, put it low on the priority list just because it's variable. If you're married, you don't have to deal with this at all if you already have a family. But if you're like me, single guy, want to get in the dating scene, want to find a lucky lady, then dating is definitely an aspect of it. Like I said, for me personally, it's kind of like on the lower end. So it's not as important, but still important to me. So that takes into account as well. So those are the, say, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to consider when choosing a city to live in. I actually might need to title that. 5 things when choosing a city to live in. But let me know. Give me feedback. What's your top priority? Leave that in the comments. Any future lives you want me to do, let me know. I haven't come up with a live for Tuesday yet, so I will leave that in surprise. If you have my live on AI was actually a requested one from a viewer. So if you have any more requested ones, please let me know, and I'll definitely make sure that. I actually wasn't thinking I was going to make it priority, but kind of with what I was doing at work and stuff, and the big focus on AI and kind of how the market is loving AI. It's the new shiny object, not crypto anymore. It's AI. I thought it was appropriate. Allowed me to learn a little bit more about AI as well, and I know a decent amount about it. I'm no expert per se, but more than an average person. But let me know. As with everything, trying to help you guys get stronger, smarter, healthier, wealthier. So go ahead, keep watching my lives, watch for more tips, and stay pumped, as always. Ready to hit push day. I actually might switch up I'm thinking of switching up my splits. I've been doing this for the past couple months. Stay tuned. All right, ready to hit push tomorrow. I might do bro split again, who knows? But, you know what? Cue the outro.